at 3 pedals from Sonicake. For all of the heady, high concept, and often high budget gear we take a look at on this channel, it can sometimes be nice to kind of strip back, scale down, and play something super accessible. And I mean accessible in multiple senses of the word. Accessible can be financially accessible. These pedals are on Amazon and they are not pricey. Accessible can also mean easy and straightforward to find the sounds you want. This is an incredibly straightforward delay and reverb. And accessible can also mean getting all the sounds you need out of one device. This is 4 different modulation engines in one straightforward package. We are here today taking a look at 3 offerings from Sonicake, the Tone Grolip EQ, and I don't know what Grolip means. Neither does Google. I don't know what that word is. The Tone Grolip is a 10-band EQ with a overall negative or positive 15 dB boost control in it. You can use this as a straightforward EQ, an overdrive that pushes specific frequencies into your amplifier, or anything in between. The Warp Dimension is a 4-mode modulation pedal sporting chorus, flanger, phaser, and tremolo with a tap tempo, tone, and level controls. And in my opinion, the standout, the Levitate, is a vibrant and responsive plate reverb and a surprisingly good, subtly modulated digital delay. And each of these pedals can be had for about 55 bucks on Amazon. This is the kind of gear that I love to be able to recommend to people starting out on their pedal journey, or somebody who's trying to get a very specific thing added to their rig but doesn't want to break the bank on something super specific or boutique, or doesn't really want to get into the crazy menu diving that some of our more ambitious pieces can require. Now, there are trade-offs to be had for sure. There are no tone controls on something like the Levitate, so that reverb and that delay, the brightness of that reverb is just fundamental to the sound of that pedal. And as you heard on the intro track, we ended up writing a lot of kind of bright new wave 80s inspired guitar, because that's what bright, vibrant plate reverb calls for, in my opinion. There are also some quirks of these pedals. I find that the chorus sound is absolutely incredible if you keep that depth super low. The moment you start to turn that depth up, it gets a little shaky in a very specific way that I have a hard time putting my finger on, but that I find that doesn't really agree with me. But like I said, you take that, you find that sweet spot, you take that depth nice and low, and you end up with a really wonderful, blurry Dimension C-esque chorus sound. And we'll get into it in the sound samples, but that EQ, the Tone Grolip, which, by the way, on Amazon, it's not called the Tone Grolip. I don't know why it says it on the face of the pedal. If you just search for Sonicake EQ, it will come up. But if you search for Tone Grolip, you're going to get a wrench, apparently. Anyways, that EQ pedal, not only is it useful for kind of like troublesome frequencies, but as a sound design fundamental, I found it to be incredibly useful on that intro track. I actually doubled a lot of the rhythm guitar chords, played an octave higher into a maxed out Levitate reverb with all of my lows shelved off in that EQ up to about 125 kilohertz, and that kind of bright, sparkly, no low end, mixed low in the mix gave me a better version of shimmer. Without having to use a shimmer reverb, without having to engage with that cheesiness, I instead just played a very washed out, completely low shelved, octave up version of that same guitar part. And it just allows you to kind of approach guitar in a different way when you take a really hands-on, active, and sometimes aggressive approach to EQing your guitar ahead of your amplifier. Here's the thing. These are incredibly accessible guitar pedals like we talked about. If you're just starting out, these are an easy recommendation. But I listened to that intro track and I don't hear my first guitar pedal sound quality on that track. I think those sounded great. I think that reverb is sprightly and engaging and energetic. I think that delay actually has a lot of practical use as a rhythmic delay. And I will always be a sucker for however you get good chorus sound. So let's go to our sound samples. Let's walk through each of these pedals and see if any of these things might be your next favorite affordable guitar pedal. As always, before we get into our sound samples, let's go ahead and talk through our signal chain and the context we are working in. I am playing my Balaguer Espada Ambient Select with Gun Street wiring, Burnside single coil pickups into the Electronic Audio Experiments Limelight. On the intro song, we used the boost channel only for all of our sounds. The Sonicake Tone Grolip, the Warped Dimension, and the Levitate. From there, we go into our amplifier, which is the Universal Audio Dream, a Fender-style amplifier, and then onto our DAW, which is Universal Audio's Luna. All of our effects bypassed, just the guitar into the amp sounds like this. Okay, let's start things off with this EQ pedal. You obviously have a variety of frequencies to choose from, as well as kind of a master level control on that far left. This basically can be used to either do kind of very base level surgical EQ correction, or you can kind of use it to run certain or all of your frequencies more aggressively into the front of your amplifier for kind of very specific versions of amp clipping. The cool thing about that is it's one thing to just kind of treat it like a flat boost pedal and hit the front of your amp harder, but because you've got all of these bands, you can actually kind of fine tune exactly how you want that kind of amp breakup to sound. Being able to scoop basically everything south of about 100 dB or 100 hertz is incredibly helpful. Especially if you want to kind of use the neck pickup in these situations. It can also be used to obviously just kind of deal with specific treble frequencies, or a great use that I found on that intro track was kind of taking those kind of core rhythm guitar parts, the and in order to get a little bit more sparkle out of that, not only did I do a little bit of treble boosting on that EQ, but I actually got a lot more sparkle and a lot more kind of perceived kind of prettiness out of the mixing process by actually recording those same guitars an octave up on the guitar itself, caked in reverb with basically all the low end pulled out to give it almost the perception of shimmer without actually giving any shimmer on the reverb. Yeah, by like hard cutting a lot of those frequencies, you can kind of take your guitar and turn it into more of a sound design tool than just a kind of melodic instrument in and of itself. Being able to kind of stack that underneath those kind of more foundational octave down chords is a great way to kind of add dynamics to your recordings, especially by using those in certain places and not other places. Stacking guitars like that with very narrow frequency bands that you're highlighting can give you a lot of like extra movement in your mix. Yeah, it's a very, very useful little EQ pedal. So next up, let's take a look at the warp dimension. This is a pretty impressively useful little 4-mode modulation pedal. You've got tap tempo, which is very welcomed for something that has tremolo on it, as well as a flanger, a phaser, and a chorus. That level control in the top left is going to be your mix for your chorus, but a master volume for flanger, phaser, and tremolo. You'll pretty much want to keep it dimed across those 3 modes. You've got a tone control, which is really helpful for kind of softening up your chorus specifically in a lot of ways. And then you have rate and depth. I find that this chorus takes on a very strange, not super pleasant jitteriness to my ear with the depth kind of when you get the depth a little bit too high. But you get a lot of great, really gentle chorus sounds at lower depths with a kind of wide range of available rates, which is really cool. So let's start with that chorus. Let's give it a listen, and then we'll kind of walk through those other modes. You can hear almost like a metallic, obviously it's a digital chorus, but you can hear almost like a metallic kind of shake to the chorus right there. At least I can. But with the depth nice and low, you get an almost more Dimension C-esque chorus sound, which is, for my money, the best chorus sound on the planet. again, not to get too far ahead too quickly, but that sounds really good with that nice bright plate reverb. Yeah, that's a great chorus sound in there. I think a common refrain in the warped dimension is that depth getting a little too deep too fast. There are some great slow-moving, low-depth sounds in here, though. And let's wrap things up with Levitate. This is going to be, in my opinion, the kind of standout pedal of these three offerings from Sonicake, because both the delay and the reverb on this thing sound pretty freaking good. On the right side, you have your delay. By holding that foot switch down for delay, you can transfer that foot switch into a tap tempo. You have your wet and dry as separate controls, which is an interesting approach versus kind of a conventional blend knob. You have feedback and you have time. There's no tone control, there's no modulation, but the delay does have a really interesting modulation applied to it anyways, kind of a almost flanged tape kind of thing. And on that left side, you have the reverb, which is very cut and dry, very straightforward. You have amount of reverb and you have decay. There is no tone control, there's no modulation, and it is essentially just a nice, bright, reactive plate reverb. And I actually think it sounds really, really good. So let's take a look at the delay first, and then we'll take a look at the reverb. Yeah, it's a great sound and delay. It's very straightforward. It's very simple, but I like it. It's got a good vibe. That tiny bit of kind of aliased modulation that you hear in there plays really nicely with a nice subtle chorus and that plate reverb. Hence why we went as new wave 80s as we did on that intro. Like I said, it's sprightly, it's lively, it's pretty good, and it gets really ambient.